to our Neighborhood Services and Education Committee. I'm Councilmember Arenas, and I'll be your chair today. And welcome back, everyone, from our summer recess. If some of you have taken that time to regenerate and get some additional energy to tackle all of what we have on our work plans, which is part of what our agenda is looking at today. I commend you, and hopefully our community has done the same. All right, so I think we have met quorum. So if we could please take roll call, please.
Jimenez, Cohen,
Here.
Esparza, Carrasco,
Present.
Arenas.
Here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so the next item is review work plan, but there isn't anything under that item. So for those of you who are following us at home, the next item is consent calendar, and there is the commission's annual report as well as the work plan. I think we need to hear public comment first, and then I'll look for a motion.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Greg Beekman here. Thank you for this item. All the work that the library commission and stuff is doing at this time in their yearly reports. A report and reminder for the library work that they're doing. The importance of digital inclusion is, really vital to ourselves, community for the next few years. And as important as it is, I hope they can always be remembering that open public policies and accountability practices in taking this technology in our these things have to change together. That actually the better definition of our community sustainability, how to talk to our kids, exactly how we're trying to bridge this to provide that to be that work in tandem together in our future. And good luck in those efforts. How we,
Mr. Beekman, I apologize for interrupting you, but your call quality is very low, and so your message is really getting lost on us because we hear every other word. You want to try again?
Yeah, thank you. I'll try to be very quickly. Just that I hope open policies and accountability practices can be just as can work hand in hand with the important work of digital inclusion that's happening at this time. And the two things working together, that's how we build our future well. And that's the digital future. That's the promise of our future. And good luck how we can do that. Thank you.
Paul Soto.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. One of the things that I'd like to point out is, once again, that there are items that are going on to the consent calendars that kind of beg to be discussed, and for the public to challenge the policy decisions that are being made. And the reasons for that is because they're having a direct impact on the context in which I exist. And so to put these on consent, what is being done is the law is actually being used to circumvent and prevent democracy. A very basic tenet of democracy is that the citizenry understand that the representatives derive their consent to govern from the consent of the governed. And so I don't consent to these consent calendar items. So on using that as the basis for my position with respect to consent calendar items, the government does not have the consent of the governed to do this, because it's abbreviating and eliminating the public's ability to challenge the policies that you're saying is okay. I'm sorry, I don't trust my government. There is no reason to trust anyone that has vested interest and with developers, and that corporations from around the world, investment companies, pension funds from Canada, Japan, Europe, London, England, all of these are investing in this city. So there's more to it than just a land use issue or a particular policy or developer. It's about pension funds and economies of different countries outside of the United States affecting me and the context in which I live. And to put these on consent calendar without no input is...
Back to the committee.
Thank you. I don't see any hands from my colleagues, and so if somebody could please provide a motion to approve consent.
I'll move to.
Go ahead.
Second.
Wonderful. Roll call, please.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Esparza, Carrasco,
Aye.
Arenas.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So we are just moving along. This is great for our first day back from summer vacation. And I have even better news, and that is I have a request for a deferral on the Bill of Rights report, which is item number 2 under reports to committee. There is somebody missing that has been part of this conversation and leading a lot of this coordination and integration between departments, and that's Angel Rios. And I would really love for him to be here, as I think he knows some of the intricacies, and not saying that nobody else in this room does, but I would like to have his voice in the room, and no disrespect to anyone. I think that it's really important. I'm requesting for some additional information on the report, and so I'm asking for a deferral.
Chair, this is Carrasco.
Mm-hmm.
And how long do you want the deferral for?
I think next month, council member. I think that would work.
I'm assuming that's going to be okay with staff, given that most of the work is probably already done. We're just waiting for Angel.
Councilmember John Cicerelli, Director Parks Recreation, sitting in for Angel. That is fine with the administration as well as the auditor's office.
I'm sorry, there's a huge truck that just went by. Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll go ahead and make that that motion for a deferral.
I'll make a second. All right, let's do roll call.
We'll need to take public comment before.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Paul Soto.
Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I agree that Angel needs to be here because I'd like to hear what he has to say. But also I'm interested in Councilwoman Arenas, what additional items, I'm just out of curiosity, what is it that you are looking for that is maybe absent or maybe requires clarity? As a citizen, I'm interested in knowing what that may be, because then I can do my own research to possibly augment or complement the work that you were doing. Obviously, it's picked a curiosity of yours, and you're requesting the deferral for 2 different reasons. One is Angel's absence, and the other is those particular items. When we have this Youth Bill of Rights, what I'd like to know is, how is this particular Bill of Rights inconsistent with the Constitution? How is it inconsistent with any other policy that would require the city to do this analysis and produce these reports? I mean, because I think we have enough laws that protect youth and that protect what it is that this Bill of Rights is ostensibly attempting to preserve and protect. So my curiosity stems from, what is this particular bill? How is this going to enhance or augment the laws of the Constitution or any ordinances or policies that we already have in place? That's what I'm curious about. Also, racial equity, is that the racial equity, there needs to be an actual analysis on how racial equity is applied to these particular policies, because equity is used in every single one of them. And there's no objective definition. The definition that was given before, that's not a definition, that's a nonprofit mission statement. But what I need is a definition.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. I'm hoping if I can do this right. Okay, good. Hopefully you can hear my voice better at this time. I just wanted to thank the chairperson, Arenas. She seems to have a good attitude for the meeting today. Thank you. I hope the meeting goes well. I'm really sorry that there can't be any there won't be a Children's Bill of Rights report back today. I was really interested in hearing about it for the first time. I think it could be a really interesting way to clarify exactly what exactly can be children and youth rights issues. It'd be interesting to learn such things. And then good luck to Paul in how he can ask people within city government and really develop conversations with city staff on this sort of subject matter and have good dialogue. And he can add a really important input outside of the public comment process that should be interesting in our future. So thanks for that. Good luck how we'll all grow with such issues and learning the learning process. And good luck to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. Normally, we don't respond to comments, but just to clarify for the Bill of Rights audit, which is an audit that I requested, it's really meant to look at the city of San Jose and the programs that tend to serve children and youth. And the audit was meant to evaluate how we are incorporating these Bill of Rights and if we are meeting those outcomes that each of those rights declare for our children. And so some of that information is going to come through our Children and Youth Master Plan, which is going to be the main vehicle to get this integrated and really built into what we do every day. And so that is some additional information that I'd like to know is some specifics about the master plan, since this will be the way that we incorporate the Bill of Rights. So that's just some additional information. You can read the audit online under the Office of the City Auditor. And now we're going to move on. I think we still need to vote, correct? All right, roll call.
Yes. Councilmember Carrasco's hand is up. I don't know if that's still.
I didn't see that. Okay.
No, no.
Councilmember Carrasco.
No, I'm sorry. That was from before. Thanks.
Oh, got it.
I'll call roll. Jimenez,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Arenas.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So we are going to begin with, we're going to move on with reports to the committee, which is kind of the main part of this committee meeting. And we're going to start with our PAL item, and this is the Police Athletic League status report. So we're really excited to see how this has moved on and advanced. I see we have the captain here, and I'd love to give it over to you, or to any other person who's appropriate to present.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Avio Tom, Deputy Director of Parks in Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. We are here today to provide an update on PAL, on the Police Activities League partnership, programs, and services, as it's been some months since we last shared an update with the committee. Today's update will be provided by the group that's leading the partnership to revitalize PAL, Shannon Heimer, Division Manager for Parks, Destinations, Events, and Sports, Jay Baca, the President of the PAL Board, and Captain Todd Trayer of the Police Department. With that, I'll turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you, Chair Arenas and members of the committee. As a Parks Division Manager for Destination Events and Sports, I work directly with the PAL Board and our dedicated staff on PAL facilities and programs. I'm here to report that the partnership with PAL continues to develop and aims to achieve our shared objective of providing local youth and their families opportunities to engage in fun and safe activities with mentors from law enforcement agencies. Joining me here today are Captain Todd Trayer with San Jose PD and Jay Baca, the president of the PAL board, to share our progress towards building a strong future for PAL and the youth PAL serves. Just trying to make sure the presentation advances. There we are. Went to. Apologize for the delay. Here we are. Partnership with PAL based on guiding principles approved by council, which in summary establishes PAL as the operator and fundraiser for programs. PRNS serves as contract manager, providing staff support for the PAL board, community programming, as well as facility maintenance and capital projects. San Jose PD provides board support and connects officers to programs and events. The system of hybrid operation is in effect and collaboration is strong. PAL is working on their organizational structure in order to rebuild their programs. After a 3-year hiatus, PAL has brought back their football and cheerleading programs with over 400 kids participating. This year's soccer program had over 900 participants, and PAL has partnered with the San Francisco 49ers and established a flag football team. In partnership with PRNS, a Guidance into Adulthood program was started this year. This program educates teens and young adults between the ages of 15 to 20 on life and career skills, such as how credit works, personal banking, writing resumes, and job application skills. And PAL will be scheduling additional Believe to Achieve life skills and goal-setting programs for the coming months. We're working together on additional programming, which is in development stages and is targeted to open for registration later this fall. The partnership has created a smooth system for conducting facility maintenance between PRNS and PAL. Capital projects including turf replacement and master planning are in progress for this fall and winter. At this time, we have a final negotiated contract. PAL is actively working on their insurance plan in order to meet contract requirements for final execution of the contract. PRNS has $50,000 to provide PAL for board development upon final execution of the contract. The purpose of this funding is to bolster PAL as they establish new fundraising programs to cover staffing costs they didn't previously incur before the hybrid model was established. With the initial $50,000 seed funding, PAL will be able to afford a part-time executive director. PAL has actively begun recruiting and has conducted initial interviews. Final candidates will be introduced to the board at next week's monthly board meeting. After voting on a selection, PAL hopes to have an executive director in place in September. PAL is also working on a fundraising plan that this position would help develop and lead. Recognizing the need to have stronger community presence and to more easily reach donors and participants, PAL is working on both plans for a website update and outreach plan and actively soliciting sponsors for both. A new board member with extensive fundraising experience has been recruited, bringing the total board to 7 members, including myself and Captain Trayer. Our next steps include final execution of the contract, providing PAL the budgeted $50,000 in development funds, working collaboratively on the onboarding of an executive director, establishing a fundraising plan, and the growth of PAL board and programs. We're at a pivotal point in the reestablishment of the PAL board. The board is committed and diligently forging a path forward. I want to thank PAL, and especially Jay Baca, the board president, for their dedication to the partnership and working so collaboratively with PRNS and San Jose PD staff. Council, thank you for your time and support through this process. The joint partnership is enthusiastic to continue our work in the field, so to speak. We ask that you accept the status report, and we're available for any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you for the presentation. We're going to go to public comment.
Paul Soto.
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I want to remind everyone how PAL Stadium got built. When the freeway, when the 680 went through Salsipuedes, and basically it went not only through Salsipuedes, but it also went through Barrio Horseshoe, and so those were two primary neighborhoods that were impacted by um, kind of discriminatory practices. And so one of the ways in which the city made an attempt to kind of amend that wrong was to build Pal Stadium. And so that's how it got its beginnings, its start. And ever since then, it's provided the means, the space, and the time for youth that were impacted in that, especially that particular area, that were impacted by it, to be able to participate in sports, to participate in just really confidence building, because there was no parks, there was no space to engage in sports. And so I'd like to remind everyone that when we're talking about racial equity and we're talking about centering that within the context of these policy decisions, that those histories are included, because it's the ancestors and people that were connected to those histories that were the primary target beneficiaries of the placement of Pal Stadium there. And I think that's critical, because when we're talking about racial equity and using that principle across the board, I personally can't think of any other space by which to apply that than Pal Stadium. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Great, thank you. I don't see any hands from my colleagues. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions in case folks just need a couple of moments. My question is, the Eastridge Little League is one of those leagues that has been very active on the east side and is losing their home because of the contamination from the leaded fuel in the airport, the Reed Hillview Airport, and not only as a precautionary measure, but also because the airport is banned from allowing others to be on their property. I think just to mitigate any of these risks. And so they've been trying to find a home. How has the folks from PAL been facilitating, if anything? What's that partnership looking like?
Council member, PAL was involved with my team in the citywide sports program, working with Angel to identify places for them to. And I don't have right in front of me where they are practicing right now, but they were working together as a team, and there was a decision made.
Yeah, I'd been in a previous meeting with them, and I know the park in my district, Welch Park, was going to be one of those sites, and then of course Arcadia was going to be the other site. But I know from just the last time that I was in that meeting that they didn't seem to be happy to be splitting spots. So I was wondering if there was any further development on that, or if PAL stepped in, saved the day, and
I don't think it's been brought back to PAL since they decided to play at those two sites.
oh, got it. Okay. Alrighty. Well, that was really my question. Oh, and I heard you saying that registration is going to open up later on this year, correct? In fall?
So they're doing PAL is doing their normal programs that they're doing right now, and then we're adding some additional programming. So we're wanting to focus on after-school programming, some focus around academics, and then some activities in the main building, and then potentially some additional programs such as chess and a couple other things. Would you like to?
Hello. So just to elaborate what she was saying, I felt like it made more sense to not only be in athletics, but move into more of an academic programming as well for the kids of that community. There's a lot of kids that still need support, but are not playing sports. And I think it'd be better suited if we start, adding other curricular activities or academics to support their desires and then what they're good at. You know what I mean? They might be good at graphic design. They might be good at playing chess, maybe robotics. Those are some of the things that we've been thinking about applying to our programming. But of course, we have to make sure that we are moving in the right direction as far as funding and finding those instructors to do it as well.
Right. There is something about, I think there's an opportunity for us to be that place where kids can actually come, maybe instead of going to a Starbucks or to any other coffee shop, sit down there and do some of that homework assignments, right? The other piece that I'm going to anticipate that our kids are going to need is a tutor, right? And somebody who has the capacity to just step in any subject matter. But if I were to guess, and if I look at some of the research and the past research, I know young boys, typically it's math, right? And for all of our kids, it's going to be reading. And so I wonder, what is your plan in case these kiddos have additional needs? And is there going to be any level of assessment to figure out where they're at, how they're progressing, whether this is actually helping, right? How will you figure that out if this is something that is actually helpful and needed?
That's a great question. And I'll be honest with you, I was one of those kids. I came from, welfare, parents, and all that good stuff. And sports is what kept me out of trouble and kept me focused on staying in school. But I was dyslexic. I had ADHD,
Right.
and that didn't become to light to my parents until they actually separated. By this time, I'm already 8, 9 years old and was doing terrible in school.
Yeah.
So to me, this is very important, and I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah.
So I know we did not elaborate on how we're going to do the activity, or should I say the after school programming, but one of those assessments and figured out how we're going to get help for these kids is imperative to our communities. There's so many kids that get left back. It's not because of they're not being able to do something. It's just that they need to be taught a different way or explored in a different way. And that's
Right.
my ultimate goal.
Yes, and I really appreciate that, and congratulations to you for making sure that you stayed focused on not only something that you liked, but moving forward. One of the issues that I had seen when I was doing assessments for children, this is for children under the age of 6 through 6, is that a lot of the schools tell our families they'll grow out of it. This is just a phase, or there's really nothing we can do. You have to get your own support and help. And some of our families that don't have any resources or don't have access to maybe some of the information that the school legally has a right in what our students' rights are. They just believe what people tell them, because I would get so many return families that said couldn't, they gave them a runaround, they tire them out. It's so many different versions of the same thing, which is not offering that service because it's very expensive. So I think to anticipate and not that every kiddo is going to have a special need, but I think to anticipate that there's going to be, among all of us here, there's different ways of learning. And we don't call it special ed. It's just, that's our particular way of reading and learning information and understanding it. I think at this point, you should anticipate that there's going to be some of those needs, and that you might want to put a packet together or develop a relationship with some of the nearby school districts so that you know exactly who to who to direct them to. For example, under the age of 6, there's first 5, but above the age of 6, you're kind of on your own. Either the pediatrician can do this, or a specialized developmental pediatrician can do this, or some of the programs that are under a county office of ed can do this, because county office of ed is basically all dedicated to developmental differences and supporting those families and those students. So I think there's a little bit more that needs to get done, because I'm going to see that there's going to be a lot of need. And I see this as a great opportunity to capture some of those kiddos and place them into the right service, so that they also can have a very successful outcome. And then, so that's just one point. The second one is, I heard you say, I think, chess or robotics as some of the additional classes. And I had requested for some gender neutral classes. We're all groomed to think in certain ways, and currently our generations are being more fluid about gender and stereotypes. But if I default back to that thinking, I'm going to say chess and robotics is not something that maybe appeals to all genders. So if we could expand on that, because one of the things that I'd like to see is to have more young girls, or just a variety of people and young students attending. All right, so those are my comments. I don't see anybody else. So, oh, you do? Okay. Oh, I don't know how that one works.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and all the progress you've been making. I think there's a tremendous amount of value in obviously the academics and the education component you mentioned. I think I take heart in the fact that in the library system and parks and rec, we're already doing a lot of that. I think the other report that we deferred was touching on some of the work that's being done across the city. And so what I'm curious about is, do you, and I apologize, your name, Mr. Baca? Jay. So Jay, I was curious about, and it seems like you guys are starting to think about going, maybe adding these additional programs maybe in the future. But what I would hate to see, and these are just off the cuff sentiments that come to mind as you were mentioning it, is that I think the city's already doing a lot of that work in other spaces. And for me, when I think about PAL, Police Activity League, I'm thinking sports, organized sports, which I think bring a tremendous amount of value in other respects that I think a lot of kids, like sort of like you, I played in PAL as well. And that was the only opportunity I had to play in organized sports and such. And so what I'm wondering is, if some of these other academic programs come online, do you envision that they're going to sort of take the place of or displace some of the sports opportunities? Because I would hate for that to happen. Now, if we're doing both, I think that's a wonderful thing, especially if it can be complemented. But I'm wondering if you can give me your thoughts on that.
Thank you, council member. I wanted to answer in terms of the part of the hybrid relationship is PAL is to allow PAL to continue doing the programs that they're doing, the athletic focus, and then PRNS is coming in to help with some of the additional programming. So we'll do it jointly, we'll do it together, but to supplement and complement, not to interfere with any program that's already going and the growth of that programming. So we've talked a bit about that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I just really,
just to
yeah,
elaborate
please.
on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, please.
Council member. Great question. I've been dreaming about this for a very long time, even before I was on the board, that I wanted to be a part of an organization like this that gave back to our community. When I jumped on the board in 2014, I had all these dreams and wanted to create all these new programs, but unfortunately I was just a member on the board. But now that I'm in the president, in the chair, this changes the game. We're literally rebuilding PAL from the ground up. Infrastructure, to building upon the programs that we have existing, to expanding them even more so. And then, of course, I know that academics and activities is very important. And something to elaborate what Councilmember Arenas said, we want more gender neutral programs. That's something that we are exploring as well. But we need to get data points. We need to get in touch, like you said, with the community and figure out what they want and how we can provide it to them. How do we get in touch with them? You know, a lot of these parents, unfortunately, do not, you know, they're not using a lot of emails. You know, they're still some old school ways, right? Flyers and things of that sort that make sense, and still reaching out to old partners, the schools around us. I used to work very closely to several schools, elementary schools around that area that I used to teach class. In fact, I just reached out to an organization called Empowered to see how they could help us, see if we have instructors and see what kind of programming they have. We're not here to reinvent the wheel, like you were saying before. You know, there's programs that around the city that we're already doing, but we need to get our community in that area to be more active about those types of activities and academics as well.
Thank you. And you know, as you're talking, I have two additional questions. One is to your point is sometimes you have to reach out to folks in, well, I guess traditional ways, right? As opposed to social media and stuff, although many people are on their phones and the internet. But how many, let me just ask it this way. Do we feel like members of the community, especially in East San Jose, where PAL is located, that they are aware of some of these changes that are happening and that they are privy to some of the good things that are happening at PAL and sort of the expectations that things are going to improve and get better?
That is a really great question. I'm the type of guy as I like to take data first and then be active about it. I don't want to talk a big game, and you know, I rather under promise and over deliver. That's the way I look at it. So I mean, I literally walked into PAL when I had to help. Unfortunately, Joe Gagliardi had some health problems, so I'm now doing most of the operational stuff at this point for the ED position. I just walked in there and I started asking all the questions. I wasn't changing anything. The idea was to see how they felt, what they trusted, who they trusted, and how I could be of help. That's the first and most important thing. How could I reassure that we're going to be here in 5 years? And then from there, now I'm talking to all the coaches, all the commissioners. I'm sitting in with all the meetings, and I'm gathering this information about what they need, what they're having problems with, all that good stuff. Taking in all those notes and all those matrix on that.
If I may add, council member, we've been working on collecting data, and recently PAL has been able to provide us with the raw data, and we're starting to collate it on zip codes, where participants are coming from, and other demographics to help us identify who is participating in PAL, who isn't, who we need to reach, and we're really diving into those discussions now to make sure we're reaching all of our community, but certainly targeting those that need us the most.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then the very last question I had was, I know that a large part of the conversation that has taken place over this last few years when we've been sort of reevaluating PAL and the structure, you know, initially, at least in my mind, what I heard was some governance issues and things of that nature, amongst other issues. But I remember hearing some time back that part of the frustration from the community was the usage of the fields from outside groups from other parts of the city, say West San Jose, or even outside from another city. And so have we seen a change in usage as it relates to, you know, groups, sports leagues from other parts of the city utilizing that field that is very precious, obviously, to the local community? And you know, I know they're often looking for fields to use and such. Has that changed at all?
You know, we're at a very interesting time right now with COVID. With other colleagues, I mean, even debate teams are down 80%. So it seems like a lot of the parents are taking kids outside of any curricular activity. And I think that's going to work really against us in the long run for our society and for our communities. So right now, we definitely are rebuilding programs. We brought back football, we brought back cheerleading. We lost our rec baseball, I'll be honest with you. So now I'm bringing it back next year. So I'm rebuilding those programs that we've either lost or building upon the ones that we have currently. But, you even soccer. I mean, it's our strongest sport. They went from 1,400. Now we might look in about 1,000 this year of participants. So I have to look at why, first of all, and a lot of it has to do with, again, people are kind of, there's different leagues that are starting. So we have to figure out how to reach out to our community to let them know that we're still very present. I hope that helped.
Yeah, and actually something that may help. And Avi, I know that there's I don't know what the status is, but the sports field study and the usage and stuff, things of that nature. How does that apply to what's happening at PAL? Is it how does that interrelate with what you all are doing?
Thank you, council members. So we are looking at who is using the fields where, and I would say that what I have been able to track so far with PAL is that it's primarily PAL programming on PAL fields. And then, but PAL is still, even with some of the building back that Jay is referring to, PAL is still big enough that they play throughout at other city fields throughout the city as well. We're finding that the use, we have some work to do, but most of the use is from around the area. But again, we need to, we're delving deeper into the data and needing to do a bit more work with it.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
We keep thinking that it's only Foothill Division or district needs help. I mean, our soccer league, when we have kids from Willow Glen, there's a league there. We have Cambrian, we have Rose Garden. There's a lot of kids throughout all these neighborhoods, even if there's little pockets of, maybe not the most best living environment and stuff like that. Yes, I get Foothill. There's definitely a lot more area that we need geographically that we need to be helping with these kids, but there's pockets everywhere in San Jose that we love to help, not just Foothill, but we are concentrating on Foothill for sure. But, if we have a league, football league like we used to prior to us losing it in 2016, there was 8 teams from different parts of San Jose, right? And now we have 1. But again, we were helping the whole city of San Jose. And that's my ultimate goal, is that as we grow, not only our programs grow, but other existing nonprofits out there that are doing the same thing. I'm already trying to collaborate and focusing on collaborating with other folks or businesses, small businesses that want to make programs or offer programs in their gyms or fitness studios for kids. I just linked up with a boxing studio off of Park and Sonol, and they're gung-ho. This guy's awesome, Caesar. And he's like, hey, he's building an area so they could do like an after-school program as well in his gym. So when we talk about things like this, there's so many people out there. We just got to find them. And as I keep exploring it, I'm finding all these little areas where people are like, hey, I'm willing to help.
Okay.
So expanding upon our volunteer program is essential to what we're doing. And focusing on the fundraising as far as the board is very important as well. This is going to change how we bring money in and how we support the programs. And it's going to start from the board when it comes to money, and it's going to start with programming when it comes to the operational side.
Thank you. Certainly looking forward to the sustainability of the program, right, for the benefit of all the city and the families that depend on it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Would you like to?
And I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Wonderful.
Second, and I have my hand up.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at, because I logged in and I didn't see anything. I apologize about that, council member.
Oh, that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah, I just actually put it up because my brain got triggered by this great conversation that's happening. I want to thank Councilmember Jimenez, because I too, with all of the resources that we have in the city, I hope that we find a way that we can partner in such a way with PAL, and it's not to take away from what the original goal was, which was to make accessible to our kiddos opportunities that they didn't have before, and specifically in sports. My own kids participated in the soccer league, and they none of them had any aspirations of going professional or anything like that. They just really enjoyed it for the recreational value, and mom enjoyed it because we got out early Saturday mornings out of the house. And so PAL offers that opportunity. Either you're a very serious athlete and you want to improve and you want to have more opportunities, or you're a family like mine that really just enjoyed the camaraderie and the environment and the opportunity to get out there and learn a new sport. And so I hope that we can maintain that as our North Star. And of course, all the additional support services, maybe a way of partnering with the library or with PRNS or with our nonprofits. And instead of creating support systems, access those support systems and potentially refer people or bring even those support systems into the facility. So that's just an initial thought that I had. The other is that I'm intrigued by all the data that's being collected, and wondering if there's going to be an opportunity to present this at the monthly meetings or to come back and present it to committee. And I'm just throwing that out as a question. I'll take the answer from anyone who has it.
Thank you, Council Member, for the great question. So the data is actually extremely exciting to me. It's something that my programs delve into deeply. The data is just starting to flow from PAL as we've gotten organized around what to collect, when to collect, how to collect it. And Jay has plans, which he can speak to report it monthly. So there's highlights every month at the board meetings. And then, of course, we'll share it with council as it's summarized.
Thank you for that. And Jay, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. By the way, thank you so much for the work that you're doing on the board.
Appreciate
Yes.
it. Something that I want to bring up from board meetings that we were having in 2019 when we were going through the audit, and it just ingrained in my head when I was listening to all of you speak. It now comes to me that over half of the council members at that time either played at PAL, a sport, or their kids played there. So that shows in itself how successful these programs are. And I haven't collected the data on there, but if you don't mind me reaching out to you, all of you individually, to see how it's affected, right? Almost like alumni. But long story short, that shows in itself how successful these programs are. I mean, if a large portion of the council members have gone through PAL and the programs, I mean, how many other lives has it shaped in our city, even our city workers? And so I'm excited to eventually explore that data. But yeah, so that's definitely something that's been very interesting to me that, that you have brought that up. We definitely need to build upon programs, not just for people or kids, I should say, that, just want to try baseball, but also help them along their path. If they excel in baseball, how do we get to the next level for them, right? Give them a chance to have a scholarship. And one of the very important things that I love that you said is like, as a mom, it was tough to, get these kids out sometimes. Well, I've been wanting to build like programs during the day specifically for moms or toddlers. Even like we were talking about a mommy and me program. I mean, if you think about it, most of all our programs start after, people get off work. What can we do for the community during those 8 hours or those 9-10 hours prior to that? So that's how I'm looking at it from a perspective.
I love that idea. And I know that Councilmember Arenas was always super active when her babies were babies. I know this because I was with her. And I did a lot of Mommy Me kind of programming, whether it was at the old Moxa building during the mariachi programs that they have for the children, or it was at the YMCA with the sports and swim classes. And to have a facility that's empty during the day, I think is such a missed opportunity. So I love where you're going with this and what you're thinking regarding using that facility or our facilities throughout the city to further enhance the lives of our children and especially provide opportunities for moms and their young children to create bonding experiences. So thank you for that. I love it. What I want to offer this team specifically is an opportunity to work with my office and with my own team as you're collecting data. We can help in facilitating groups or communication. We have a very extensive data base, and we also have a very extensive newsletter that goes out to quite a large number of families in the district. I've always been particularly interested in the surrounding neighborhoods around PAL. Not only is it incredibly diverse, demographically, the different cultures and the different ethnicities that live very close to PAL is very diverse, but the economics of those neighborhoods is also extremely diverse. So of course we have the Mayfair community, which if you were to look at it, it can be divided up into 3 different neighborhoods that encompass all of Mayfair. But then you have Pokeway, you have across the way, which is the Tropicana, it's in District 7, but those kiddos come over to Emma Prush, Vegilution, and of course PAL and Rancho Golf. There's just a lot of opportunities to partner and to get some really good, solid data that I'd love to have my team participate in and be of assistance to you. So I'm offering that, and it's on the record. So please make sure to use our resources. We have extensive relationships with that community.
Thank you.
And that's it for me. Sure.
Thank you, council member. I do remember the Mommy and Me classes. There was plenty of them, and it would be wonderful to have this continuum of services for our children, and have PAL be that source of activities from a very early age, right? The earlier you get started, the more interested they are in sports and managing stress. And I mean, you know, the benefits are endless. You know those benefits. I unfortunately don't have a story of alumni story, but this is why I ask about gender neutral activities. I was raised in a very strict household that held on to a lot of gender stereotype, and you know, I needed to conform to those roles because that's what my parents either allowed me to do or not to do. But the bakery, after we would go to church, is right across the street from Palace, called Buen Gusto. And we'd go there and I see the lights and I see the kids, and it's like, oh, well, but that's for boys, right? So I think this is an opportunity to invite outside of boys and to integrate our young ladies and others into sports just as much, right? And to break some of those stereotypes, because I'm sure that there's a lot of immigrant families that still hold on to some of those. But when there's something offered that is in conjunction with the police department and then the city of San Jose, it's, you know, very respectable, very, you know, it's something that people, it's appealing and they want to send their kids that way. So I think this is another opportunity to do that. All right. Well, it sounds like we had a really great conversation. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve, and I hear the excitement in your voice, and I am looking forward to seeing how this moves forward. I know that Councilmember Carrasco has been working really closely, as Paula Stadium is in her district, but I know that there's kids from just about anywhere that can benefit. So I look forward to seeing some of that data and seeing some of those wants from our community. All right, there's already is there a motion?
Yeah.
There is. All right, let's call it.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So we're moving on to Item number 3 under reports to committee, and that's proposed equity roundtable status report. Thank you so much for. And as we transition over, this will be our last item, as there were only 3 items on our agenda for reports, and 1 is deferred for next month.
Chair, I just want to confirm with the clerk that Zoma Maciel is online and connected to us.
Yes, I am here. Are we ready? Okay, I'm going to get started. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the NSE committee. My name is Zulma Maciel and my pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm the director of the Office of Racial Equity. I would have preferred to have joined you by person instead of having arrived on the mega screen in the chambers, but I am unwell, and so this is about the best that I can do today. But in the spirit of building the bench and bringing equity practitioners to the table, I am joined in this presentation by my colleague, Dr. Andre Lockett, who will be co-presenting with me. Dr. Lockett joined the Office of Racial Equity last October, and we are lucky that he chose San Jose to share his personal and professional expertise, wisdom, and experience. Next slide, please. We are here today to provide an update on the Equity Roundtable and kindly request that you accept the report. Acceptance of the staff's report will enable us to create an equity-centered advisory body to support the organization towards examining effective strategies upstream and ensure organizational uptake of those methods. On the next slide, we're just going to provide something to refresh your memory. On the timeline, you'll see that Chair Arenas directed the City Manager's Office to rethink the scope and the utility of the Human Services Commission to better align and support the Office of Racial Equity. We saw this as an opportunity to be innovative, courageous, and offer alternative options. And as such, Chair Arenas shared our enthusiasm to do something different, meaningful, and she gave us the green light to explore this further. So soon after, we convened a group of community reps interested in shaping an advisory entity. And we then proposed a structure for an equity roundtable, which was shared to the NSE committee in January of this year. And I should note that the name will be changed. Most people we talked to did not like the name Equity Roundtable, so we heard that loud and clear, and that decision about the name will be made at a later time. So the co-creators and staff are grateful for this committee's support in January and encouragement during that meeting. Subsequently, staff and members of the co-creator group refined the scope of work, the selection process, and other pieces, as well as researched what other cities are doing. So the collective work has resulted in what you see in attachment A, that's attached to the council memorandum, titled Community Advisory Responsibilities and Structure, which Dr. Lockett will review in just a minute. Next. Another quick reminder of what we shared in January were the central themes that emerged from the meeting with the co-creator group. And I'm not going to read through all of them here, but these are important principles that we intend to anchor not only the work of this advisory body, but really important principles that we can anchor all of our work. And so we're pleased that we were able to have a process in which these things emerged. But one of the things that really stands out here is specific to the advisory group is that, they said, let's support a clear, defined process that defines roles and responsibilities with city departments. So on the next slide, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Lockett to take it from here.
Thank you, Solma. Good afternoon, Chair, committee members, members of the public. My name is Dr. Andre Lockett, Senior Executive Analyst with the Office of Racial Equity. It's a pleasure to be here today. In partnership with a diverse group of San Jose residents as co-creators. The scope outlined on this slide was developed with the primary function being to provide feedback and recommendations on 3 to 5 projects within the city's enterprise roadmap priorities per fiscal year, but also with the flexibility to make recommendations based on any emerging issues within the communities they have lived experience and in which they represent. Next slide, please. For the makeup of this advisory body, there will be 10 to 12 community members with lived experience navigating structural marginalization within diverse racial, ethnic, and immigrant communities in San Jose. Additionally, membership representation will include diverse experiences in various socioeconomical backgrounds and other identity groups listed on this slide. Next slide, please. The selection process will begin with ORE identifying a diverse group of community members, city administration, and department leadership to support the development of application questions and ultimately serve as applicant evaluators. Next slide, please. Members of this body will serve 2-year terms with no more than 2 consecutive terms. Staggering and increasing term length may be reconsidered after the implementation and evaluation of the first 2-year term. Unappointed vacancies will be for the full remainder of the predecessor's term to begin the date of appointment. Next slide, please. So for meeting cadence, this body will meet regularly every 2 months with additional meetings with departments happening on an as-needed basis to gather further intel and information related to the chosen projects and programs to which recommendations will be made, with all meetings complying with state and city law in accordance with procedures established by the city clerk and city attorney's office. Next slide, please. Members of this body will receive $100 stipends every 2 months, totaling $600 annually, with the option to opt out at any time. This stipend will be paid out of the Office of Racial Equity's budget and will be paid regardless of meeting attendance. This decision acknowledges members at times may need to review reports and other materials to offer feedback outside of meeting time. And now I'll pass it back over to Director Soma Maciel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Lockett. So in partnership with Community Representatives Office of Racial Equity is eager to develop and implement a meaningful advisory body that will engage community members and support the advancement of racial equity in the city organization. We are grateful for the collaboration with community partners and the support of the NSC committee in moving forward with an alternative model that embraces the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The development of this advisory board will begin in the fall of 2022. The next slide, please.
All right, let me see where we are.
In this slide, you'll see that the intent here is to adopt a continuous learning and adaptive approach. The scope of this body will include providing input and feedback and guidance on 3 to 5 specific projects within the city's initiatives roadmap, priority areas per fiscal year, with the flexibility to provide recommendations outside of the scope based on emerging issues within the communities they represent. After the initial 2-year implementation phase, staff will have data that will best inform how this advisory body should function and be integrated within the city process and practices. We recognize that the additional effort required to successfully implement, manage, monitor, and work with the advisory body and the time necessary to prepare city departments for meaningful partnership with the advisory body will require a monitoring of that time, right? So Office of Racial Equity will consider the additional workload and prioritize accordingly and assess resource demands during the first year of the implementation. On the next slide, I just want to acknowledge some important people that have been co-creators in all of this, and you see them listed here. But in particular, I'd like to thank Hector Sanchez Flores and Carmen Brammer for their additional investment of time and thought partnership. I also want to thank the Office of Racial Equity staff, Dr. Lockett, Andrea Trong, for the work, the smart and the hard work that went into creating the scope. And I also want to extend my gratitude to the NSC committee for your continued support and solidarity in advancing racial equity. That concludes our presentation. And happy to take questions.
Thank you to you both, and we are going to go to public comment.
Okay. Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. It has been a long time in coming, this item, and I'm a bit disappointed in it. I thought the Rest Equity Roundtable, which thank you that you're considering to change the name, that you're going to be ready to go with further study in the fall that I thought we were supposed to be ready to have available now. I mean, what you're going to be working on in the fall is a whole new, how do we talk about the future of the commission process? And I'm thankful that you will be talking about it, but I thought we'd have some answers now. The mobility, network, the unhoused community, which is not mentioned in this report. They're not as a part of the equity roundtable. They're mentioned in the end is to talk about unhousing issues, but why isn't there unhoused representatives a part of this equity roundtable? Why is that not mentioned? All these groups need a bit more representation in the commission process and an organized way to describe that. And that's what, will be an important function of this commission. And, in San Diego, where I'm starting to transition to move to, they have a mobility committee that works on issues, and that's like allowed. It's not like evil or unsacred or whatever the term would be. And, it's acceptable. And I just don't know what's going on to make things so difficult. Perhaps it will be with a new mayoral administration, these things could be better understood and worked on. And I hope we do. And I hope clarity can come with these sort of issues. And good luck for ourselves. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. I'm looking at hands from my colleagues, since I seem to be missing those. Do you see any? No. Okay.
Councilmember
Councilmember.
Esparza just put her hand up.
Thank you. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I wanted to ask some questions around the outreach and only having a 3-week period for folks to apply. I'm a little concerned about that. Typically that takes longer. And I also wanted to ask a question about the seats and how that makeup is what the makeup is going to look like.
Thank you, Councilmember. I will answer the first question and then I'll defer the second question to my colleagues. The outreach, the intent here is to do a lot of outreach ahead of time before the opportunity is posted and the application goes live. So working with your offices would be really important, working with partner organizations and thinking about various ways to get the word out to people well in advance is important, rather than just posting and doing some outreach and then closing it. So it's the pre-work that will be the most important to make sure that people are aware.
Okay, and I do want to bring up, like, a million years ago, because I'm that old, I started as a commissioner, and the city council at that time said, you know what, we're not happy with the applicants. We want to see a more diverse set of applicants. And I want to say they extended it to like 5 months, right? And so I just don't want to get locked into that 3-week period, because really we need that sort of diverse. And you had mentioned that we'll have representation from representatives who lived in San Jose from Black African ancestry, Native American, Chicano, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander, LGBTQIA, senior, youth, and faith-based communities. And I think that's right on. What I would add is geographic representation as well, because we have parts of the city that are frankly made up of folks from those communities that have been historically underinvested. And so, you know, we've seen that in infrastructure, we've seen that programmatically, we see that in land use, and how the city is physically built out on top of everything else. And so I do think we need folks to bring those experiences, and that needs to be part of the orientation. I know that we, you know, we'll put wonderful people on this roundtable, but we also need to ensure that the lived experience from living within marginalized neighborhoods is brought to this, because I think that's there are a number of ways in which we can do better as a city, and that is one of them. So I just wanted to bring that out a little bit more, to have that. Coming from Willow Glen, life is very different than growing up in Santee, for example. And so that's something that I did want to tease out. And lastly, just to be quick, I wanted to thank Councilmember Arenas for her leadership. There has been a lot of thought and work and on your team into this. And when a pandemic such as COVID hit, we as a city realize how important this work really is. And hopefully we can build on it in the future. And then I wanted to go really quickly, and I apologize, I had to miss the beginning because I was at a press conference to actually get some money for a part of the city that has been historically underrepresented. So I wanted to also ask a question about the stipend. Can you, trying to find my notes, can you go back and cover that again really quick while I find my notes? Thanks.
Sure. So the highlights on the stipend is that it will be $100 every other month for participants, people who are representing in the advisory group. And we do stipulate in there, it's regardless of whether or not they're attending that bi-monthly meeting, which will be a more formal meeting. And what we're saying is that there will be other work that will be done through ad hoc committees and other work with departments and meetings and reviewing material. And we believe that it's fair to, at a minimum, to be able to provide a stipend, which in total will be about $600 a year.
Thank you. Yes, now I found my notes. So I see where the stipend will be paid regardless of attendance at meetings. And you just referred to the ad hoc and the committee work. And in the report, it specifically says that this would not serve as direct compensation for time spent working on advisory body business. I did want to ask a question around that, because this came up in the redistricting commission, because those meetings were so intensive. And I know that, particularly one of the District 7 commissioners and some of the other commissioners that are low income felt like we really needed to value their time, and that we were asking a lot from them, from childcare responsibilities, as we added these meetings and they went longer and longer. So I would like to see an opportunity to reevaluate that stipend. If we can't do it in exchange for the hours. I'd like to evaluate that when it goes on too long. We really need to, again, anybody who's paid a babysitter knows that $100 does not go very far. And yes, folks can plan and prepare for as much as they can ahead of time. But, you know, when you may not have a lot of money to draw upon to pay the babysitter or do all of those things, it can get eaten up. And so I just wanted to put that flag on that, to reevaluate that, and if we needed to raise that stipend. Thank you. That's it for me, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember, for the feedback. Well taken. We share the same values, and we're going to make sure to reevaluate that piece as well as the other considerations you mentioned.
And you know, to stay on this thread of advisory membership, you know, one of the issues that we encountered with the Human Services Commission was lack of quorum, right? I know we are not going to face that with this advisory, and I've got to say and commend you and your group for your whole team for all the really wonderful work that you've surmised in this report. But I know that it's been a lot of efforts and in speaking with people and figuring out exactly what's going to work. What I anticipate is that maybe there's folks who might not attend these meetings, but they may contribute in between the meetings, right? But how will we know that we are collecting a comprehensively a diverse, you know, feedback from folks? Is there a, I don't know, a minimum of like 3 different, you know, from 3 different groups or 4 different groups, or have you thought that through? And I think it's just me being nervous about the meetings and the feedback we get from them, because the really awesome thing about this process is that it's iterative, right? It'll get better with time and with learning and growing. And so I think this is wonderful. This is a wonderful path for this group. But I still wonder about that. How will you, have you thought how you will, if you say that you've met with, this has been approved by the advisory council, does that mean that 50% of the membership has seen it? That, you know, what is that standard?
Yeah, I think what you're asking, Councilmember, is how do we know? We know that it'll be a very diverse group. And at this point, the composition, you know, we don't know, but we want it to be representative of all the, you know, the groups that we mentioned in the memo. So it could be very different perspectives that are offering a different lens to a variety of issues. And there may not be complete consensus on everything, right?
Right.
So we haven't thought about like what percentage or what sort of, you know, what 2/3 vote, but that's something we want to consider. We want there to be some flexibility there, because when we're thinking about an equitable approach, what if, for example, 2/3 of the group decide to go one path, but in deeper, you know, root cause analysis, we find that it needs to be something different. Is it what the popular vote says, or is it to do the right thing that might be really difficult? And so those are the things that we're experimenting with, even, you know, within the city organization, that something could be really popular, but what is it that we're missing too? And so all of that is something that we're going to explore and adapt as we go along. And that's what's so exciting, is that we're not in a corner on this. We actually get to do things that are meaningful, and that at the end of the day are contributing to decisions and recommendations that are in service of Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
Yeah, well, I don't envy you. I guess I will say that. But there is an opportunity to build exactly what we need, right? This is so open that it's absolutely exciting to me. And as we get closer to those details, I'm sure that we will hear, and I think on an annual basis, a report of some of that growth. The other question I had was around the areas. I think it's 5 specific projects that are within the city's roadmap, and you listed those 5 areas. Well, one of the benefits that we receive from some of our commissions is that they're able to look at some of the work that the department staff is doing and contribute, right? And give their vote of approval, or maybe give some feedback so that it could have that iterative process, and then it comes to us. How do you anticipate, or do you anticipate having a discussion around the work that ORE is going to do or is targeting? How will you get their feedback about what the Office of Race and Equity is doing?
I think there will be an opportunity to do that, but let me go back to the first part of your question related to the priority areas of the citywide roadmap. As you know, there are, I think, over 30 items on that roadmap, and they're not going to look at everything, but there's some things that would need to be considered. Number one is close coordination with departments that are in need of additional community eyes on work that they have on the roadmap. So, for example, there could be items that are on the roadmap that already have an existing body or, you know, community and engagement process that already has a community voice that's being centered in whatever the piece that they're working on. And so, and the criteria is, where do we need to center community voice and a very diverse community voice on this roadmap? What is the department's readiness to be able to, you know, to work with the Office of Racial Equity to coordinate this? And is it upstream, or is the work already cooked and almost ready to go to City Council? Because the intent here is to work upstream first, right? So that provides the lens ahead of time. And so those are the opportunities. But I think one of my colleagues is also willing to add
Yeah,
to this.
good afternoon, Chair Rennes and committee members and members of the public. Andrea Trong, Racial Equity Manager in the Office of Racial Equity. And I just wanted to add to that, you know, one of the core themes and central themes that the co-creators had was in prioritizing these projects, really wanting to have focused and clear processes with departments. And that's why we also chose these roadmaps, but also the flexibility that we talk about, right? Is what are some emerging issues that they're hearing about in the community that we're not aware of? So yes, let's adhere to a clear process. Let's adhere to the great work that we're doing in the city, but also let's hear what also our this advisory board could look like, because there might be things that we're missing and not hearing from directly.
Right. And thank you for that. And Suma, I think you illustrated it with that example in terms of the cooking process, right? By the time that some of this report comes to council, things will be baked, right? It'll be cooked. And I think we still need, and while I think that that's one way of doing that, I think there's a missed opportunity to have what the advisory council is doing, or advisory group is doing, excuse me, and having it come to council so we can actually change those policies. Because one of the ways that or one of the roles that the advisory body has is to examine past and current city efforts that were created without meaningful inclusion of marginalized communities. And so, and that was my next question: how will you decide, how will you identify what those policies are? You know, there's some callers and community members that that are consistently at many of our our committee meetings and our council meetings, and they talk about redlining, right? They talk about what are we doing to undo redlining. I know there's a lot of work that's being done through the Department of Housing to address it. But I guess I'm asking, how will you reach back? How will you look at the former policies that are continue to drive some of that systemic racism or disadvantage for some of our communities?
Yeah, well, that's also, some of that work needs to happen ahead of time by the departments, right? When we talk about increasing the capacity for the city organization to advance racial equity, it's to actually being able to do that within departments, right? So that's when we say the department readiness to collaborate with Office of Racial Equity and this advisory body, it's being able to do that research up front and be able to provide, the historical piece, the current piece, and what's at stake if we don't make shifts down the line.
Right. But how do we make those shifts, Sulma? Because I believe that there will be a report to council on a yearly basis, right?
The report that we're going to come back to NSC is a report on how this advisory body is functioning, some lessons learned, areas where we need to modify. And so that's that report. A lot of that work will take place between the advisory body and the departments is going to be, behind the scenes, but what the departments bring forward on those roadmap items, on the handful of roadmap items, would have had already embedded the community voice from this advisory body. So there will be an influence there, right? And which ultimately gets to the city council, and on a quarterly basis, the city roadmap items will be updated.
Right. Well, you're talking about some of the current city efforts through the priority roadmap, but I was referring to some of the past policies. How will you identify what those past policies are that you need to undo, or that we need to mitigate with a new policy, or somehow lessen its impact on our community?
Chair, thank you for that question. This is Dr. Andre Lockett speaking. I think if I'm hearing you correctly, this will take some engagement with the group that ultimately gets appointed, and to hear what their lived experiences are within their communities, to identify what those concerns are, to identify what policies are really driving the impacts that they're feeling, so we can better gather what policies those are that can best inform the recommendations they want to make. So I think we don't want to be too proactive because we could miss some really good intel around what the experiences are of the people that we're ultimately trying to support here. If that makes sense.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm starting to get this picture that some of that analysis or feedback will be going to the departments versus coming to council, but ultimately the policy is within the hands of the council, and so how do we make that connection? What will the administration or the departments do as a target to change policy?
When I think about what the functioning output of this body will be recommendations that departments can ultimately use how they need to use, and ideally those recommendations should guide whatever comes to you all, whatever comes to the council. We really haven't thought past this body at this juncture. The recommendations from this body exceeding department level input.
Yeah, yeah. I guess because I'm really eager.
Yeah.
I'm really eager to have that connection and to hear from our community in this very organized advisory group modality. Um, because we come up with some of the policies that we think are going to help, or that that come across our desk. For example, one that we've been working on is where do we provide our services for our community? Do we provide them in places where people can afford them, which is what we do in our current model, or do we provide those services in the places of need? And so we continue to function with a past policy made with um, a policy decision when it was, when there was a recession. So it was fiscally motivated. But even in a recession, we must make those decisions and have our resources dedicated to the people that need it the most, because those are the ones that we're losing in our community. When the gentleman was talking earlier about the loss of the soccer membership, that also represents the loss of children in our community and the people who've moved to Central Valley for for cost of living. So in order for us to continue to support families, I'd love to have in the moment feedback from the group. Otherwise, we will continue to function separately in terms of policy. I think some of the policy may be dedicated or established through some of the process that goes through the departments when whatever item, any given Tuesday comes up. But that's not strategic, right? That's not saying the three most important policies that are holding our children back or that are targeting our children as problems instead of having programs have the systems change. How is that going to come back to the council so we can identify it and say, maybe even change the priority setting process to say we all have different wants, but there's something with our system, there's something wrong with our system. And those are priorities that we must first address before we go on to talking about, whatever it is, environment or what have you. I just love to see some feedback to our council to help educate us, right? As well as review some of the policies that we want to prioritize. Because of course you get any group of individuals and everybody's going to have a different take on things, but I'm sure that you'll provide training and the framework to address systemic inequities and racism. And so these folks will have those tools. They'll be better prepared than maybe any one of us up here. And we'll look to them as some of those experts, as well as looking at you for some of that. And so maybe this is more of your department or your office goal rather than the advisory group's role. But because I caught this in the report, I thought it would be really important for us to look at how you're going to examine past and current city efforts that negatively impact our marginalized communities. And so we have been so earnest and excited and just waiting to change policies on behalf of our community. And so and this is the reason for all these questions, is because I want to know, how do I do that in my role as a council member, and how do I connect what you're doing and what the advisory group is doing so that it makes sense, right? And so that it's systemic. I know that we're probably, I just want to go. I want to go from 0 to 60, and I know we can't. And I know this process is an iterative process, a 2-year process that will help define the body, will help shape how how it all functions. But in the meantime, the system is the same, and that to me is so frustrating. And in the meantime, our funds are getting dedicated in a way that continues to not address the real needs and the systemic issues of our community. So if you have an answer to that, then that would be great. I'll stop my questions, and we can take this offline, Sulma, if you like. But I really want to know how that connection happens so that we as council members are prepared to look at policies and say, listen, there's going to be 5 areas of policies. These are the ones that have been continuing a cycle of poverty for our East Side families, or for blah, 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 or the development is always in this area. So how do we encourage development in other areas for growth, or that the canopy, the tree canopy that Councilmember Carrasco has been advocating for many years? How do we make sure that we advocacy to get that done, and the resources, right? So anyways, that's at the core of this. That's the question that I have. And not necessarily about the advisory group, but really how do we get this process to be effective so that we can support you in the work that you're doing by changing policies and having that courage to do it, right? Because it would be great if some people, they want to just have things stay as they are and just have this, advisory council, and we think that that's sufficient, and the departments will benefit from it. But once again, policy still lies kind of in the hands of the council. So anyways, I'm done for now for those questions. I know it's a bigger conversation we'll have. I'm really, and I don't mean to take away from what you've done, because this is an absolutely fabulous process. I have given my feedback, and I think that you have another alternative name, Sulma, right?
Yeah, there's been a handful of names that have been recommended, and I know that you've seen the list, so I don't know, some of them, and let's see if I can recall. I think the one that resonated with most people was San Jose for All, because it was easy to remember. It's not an acronym, and it's easy to translate in multiple languages.
Easy to translate. Yeah, I saw that. Well, I know that the report has a different name, but I know because this is such an iterative process that you'll find the right name for the group and the process that it'll go through to feed us the information that we need in order to change policy. So anyways, thank you so much for this work. This is actually going to get our Human Relations Commission going, and some of the work that was dedicated for our Human Relations committee. And so anyways, I'm really grateful for all the work that you're doing. And there's a lot of conversations and difficult conversations that you probably had to have with our nonprofits and stakeholders, because everybody has a different and drives a different agenda. But together, I know that we can have some meaningful end results. And so thank you so much for where we are at this moment. I think that this is great progress for all of us. So when do you anticipate having maybe the first meeting?
That's hard to say. So, we have an aggressive timeline, but I actually have really taken to heart what Councilmember Esparza said, that, if we need to extend the deadline to get the right people
Yes.
onto the group, then we need to be flexible with that. So that's why I
Yes.
hesitate to give a
Okay.
time certain right now.
Okay.
And so maybe we should let up on the aggressive timeline and see and make sure that our outreach is appropriate and that we have sufficient applicants who are both not only can talk about their lived experience, but also have some some experience in being able to do some of this work and have an equity lens. So there will be definitely an orientation and training and all of that. So that's an important component that we didn't really dive into here. And so I can't pin anything on the calendar yet.
All right. Well, I won't press you on that. Just knowing that it's just on the other side is really exciting for me. And I know that the co-creators or contributors we're great stakeholders and very representative of our community. And so hopefully those folks can have a referral or nomination for some other community members. I think this is great. This is great. And somehow maybe loop in our youth commissioners and our youth, right? We always want youth to be involved, but we have to also be intentional about how they participate. All right, so I think we don't have a motion on the floor, so open to receiving one.
I'll move approval, although this isn't being cross-referenced, right? Oh, it is?
This will be cross-referenced?
Right, it's just acceptance of the status report.
That's correct. It'll be cross-referenced to the city council meeting on August 30th.
Okay, what she said.
So we're
Second.
simply accepting the report with a cross-reference to the city council report.
Wonderful.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Carrasco.
Aye.
Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so moving right along, and we are at open forum. Do we have any community members?
Yes.
In the line? Wonderful.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Good luck in how we have some early ideas how to help with the commission process at this time to get mobility people and unhoused people on the commission. Hopefully some early stuff now can help in more formal processes for the equity group that you'll be building, and good luck with its efforts. I wanted to offer that I guess in San Diego, they are really, and same with Oakland, they're actively working on how both government and community together are working on how the future of data collection with abortion issues can really be put in check, and that there's good, strong civil protection guidelines that can help the process. And that's nice. That's good to know. And I know San Jose is up on these sort of things, but I just wish San Jose could have more of an open voice in how to talk about such things. We never do, and it's sad. And good luck into yourselves in the next few years how to simply develop an open voice to talk about the good practices of civil protections with data collection. It's good subject matter, but yet we're afraid to talk about it in San Jose. And I'll be glad when we can make those steps to finally be doing that more. I also wanted to mention, of course, I've been trying to that with the war in Ukraine. I hope this month is a month that we will actually be considering. There is a chance that all sides can come to the peace negotiation table and ask it to stop, ask war to stop. I just have a bad feeling what will take place if this drags on into the winter. Why not? We know what to do. Why don't we build our good practices now? I think, it really may affect us in the winter, and we'll start making colder decisions that I hope we can do warmth. I hope we can have warmth if this war does continue. Thank you for your time.
Back to the committee.
Wonderful. So thank you all for your attendance, and we're adjourning NSC
committee. Hope you have a wonderful day.